Okay, folks, so we had a really emotional chapter yesterday, obviously, by the fact that I was having an asthma attack and weeping through part of it. I'm going to do the next two chapters in this read because they are very, very short. So let's join me for enemies and then friends. You should be seeing my screen. You should be seeing my screen. Okay, enemies. One morning in late July, we were out on patrol at LZ landing zone, Gator. Lee Strunk and Dave Jensen got into a fist fight. It was about something stupid, a missing jackknife. But even so, the fight was vicious. For a while, it went back and forth, but Dave Jensen was much bigger and much stronger. And eventually he wrapped an arm around Strunk's neck and pinned him down and kept hitting him in the nose. He hit him hard and he didn't stop. Strunk's nose made a sharp snapping sound like a firecracker. But even then, Jensen kept hitting him over and over, quick, stiff punches that did not miss. It took 3 of us to pull him off. When it was over, Strunk had to be choppered back to the rear, so outside of the live fire zone, where he had to have his nose looked after. And 2 days later, he rejoined us wearing a metal splint and lots of gauze. In any other circumstances, it might have ended there, but this was Vietnam, where they carried guns, and Dave Jensen started to worry. It was mostly in his head. There were no threats, no vows of revenge, but still a tension between them made Jensen take special precautions. On patrol, he was careful to keep track of Strunk's whereabouts. He dug his foxholes on the far side of the perimeter. He kept his back covered. He avoided situations that might put the 2 of them alone together. Eventually, after a week of this, the strain began to create problems. Jensen couldn't relax, like fighting 2 different wars, he said. No safe ground, enemies everywhere. No front or rear. At night, he had trouble sleeping, a skittish feeling, always on guard, hearing strange noises in the dark, imagining a grenade rolling into his foxhole or the tickle of a knife next to his ear. The distinction between good guys and bad guys disappeared for him. Even in times of relative safety, while the rest of us took it easy, Jensen would be sitting with his back against a stone wall, weapon across his knees, watching Lee Strunk with quick, nervous eyes. It got to the point where he lost control. Something must have snapped. One afternoon, he began firing his weapon into the air, yelling Strunk's name, just firing and yelling. And it didn't stop until he'd rattled off an entire magazine of ammunition. We were all flat on the ground. Nobody had the nerve to go near him. Jensen started to reload, but then suddenly he sat down and held his head in his arms and wouldn't move. For 2 or 3 hours, he simply sat there. But that wasn't the bizarre part, because late that same night, he borrowed a pistol, gripped it by the barrel, and used it like a hammer to break his own nose. Afterward, he crossed the perimeter to Lee Strunk's foxhole. He showed him what he had done and asked if everything was square between them. Strunk nodded and said, sure, things were square. But in the morning, Lee Strunk couldn't stop laughing. That man's crazy, he said. I stole his fucking jackknife. And now, friends. Same 2 men. Dave Jensen and Lee Strunk did not become instant buddies, but they did learn to trust each other. Over the next month, they teamed up on ambushes. They covered each other on patrol, shared a foxhole, took turns pulling guard at night. In late August, they made a pact that if one of them should ever get totally fucked up, wheelchair wound, the other guy would automatically find a way to end it. In other words, put him out of his misery. As far as I could tell, they were serious. They drew it up on paper, signing their names and asking a couple guys to act as witnesses. And then in October, Lee Strunk stepped on a rigged mortar round. It took off his right leg at the knee. He managed a little funny half step like a hop, then tilted sideways and dropped. Oh, damn, he said. And for a while he kept saying it, damn, oh, damn, as if he'd stubbed his toe. Then he panicked. He tried to get up and run, but there was nothing left to run on. He fell hard. The stump of his right leg was twitching. There were slivers of bone, and blood came in quick spurts like water from a pump. He seemed bewildered. He reached down as if to massage his missing leg, and then he passed out. Rat Kiley put on a tourniquet and administered morphine and ran plasma into him. There was nothing much anybody could do except wait for the dust off. After we'd secured an LZ landing zone, Dave Jensen went over and kneeled at Strunk's side. The stump had stopped twitching now. For a time, there was some question as to whether Strunk was still alive. But then he opened his eyes and looked up at Dave Jensen. "Oh, Jesus," he said and moaned, and tried to slide away and said, "Jesus, man, don't kill me." "Relax," Jensen said. Lee Strunk seemed groggy and confused. He lay still for a moment and then motioned toward his leg. "Really, it's not so bad. Not terrible. Not really. They can sew it back on. Really." "Right. I bet they can." "You think?" "Sure, I do." Strunk frowned at the sky. He passed out again, woke up and said, "Don't kill me." "I won't," Jensen said. "I'm serious." "Sure. But you got to promise. Swear it to me. Swear you won't kill me." Jensen nodded and said, "I swear." And a little later, we carried Strunk off to the dust-off chopper. Jensen reached out and touched the good luck. "Go on now," he said. Later, we heard that Strunk died somewhere over Chow Lai, which seemed to relieve Dave Jensen of an enormous weight. Okay. All right, so we will reconvene for the next chapter.